What if heaven spoke, not to a queen, not to a famous leader, not to someone powerful, but to an ordinary woman? A woman with fears, questions, weaknesses. A woman who never imagined her quiet life would become part of one of Christianity's most mysterious spiritual stories. And what if what she claimed to hear would go on to move millions of hearts? Stay with me until the end, because one moment in this story changes everything. And if your heart has ever asked for a sign, if you have ever whispered into silence, hoping someone was listening, this story may stay with you long after tonight, because this is not simply a story about visions. It is a story about longing, hope, doubt, faith, and the possibility that heaven still reaches into ordinary lives. Let's begin. Most extraordinary stories begin in unexpected places. Not in palaces, not under bright lights, not surrounded by applause, but in ordinary human lives, and perhaps that is what makes them so powerful. Because ordinary lives feel familiar, relatable, human. Saint Faustina was not born into fame. She was not someone the world would have expected to remember. No one looking at her early life would have imagined the spiritual mystery her name would one day carry. And maybe that matters, because many people assume extraordinary things only happen to extraordinary people. But history often tells a different story. Ordinary hearts, unexpected moments, quiet transformations, and perhaps some of the most powerful spiritual stories begin exactly there. Which makes the emotional question deeply personal. Could something sacred ever touch an ordinary life? Could heaven ever interrupt someone unexpected? Could someone like you ever experience something meaningful? That question is where this story begins, because what happened next was something she never expected. Before mystery, there is often longing, a search, a hunger, a quiet ache. People long for many things: peace, meaning, comfort, direction, hope, answers, and perhaps the deepest longing of all, to know we are not alone. How many people listening tonight know that feeling? That quiet emotional ache? That inner whisper asking, is anyone there? Does heaven see me? Does God hear my prayers? That longing is universal. It crosses generations, cultures, personalities. And perhaps that is why stories like this resonate so deeply. Because even skeptical hearts understand longing, the desire for reassurance, the hope for meaning, the need for peace. Saint Faustina's story enters exactly that emotional space. And what happened next changed everything. Imagine living an ordinary life, and suddenly feeling that reality has shifted. Not because the world changed around you, but because something deeply internal changed, a moment impossible to ignore. Unexpected, unsettling, emotionally overwhelming. Stories like this create fascination because they touch a primal question. What would I do? Would I believe? Would I question myself? Would I tell anyone? Would I stay silent? That emotional uncertainty makes the story compelling, because mystery becomes personal, not distant. Personal. And that is why so many people remain captivated by stories involving visions, spiritual encounters, and divine mystery. Because whether someone believes fully, questions deeply, or simply wonders, the emotional possibility is gripping. What if something sacred really interrupted ordinary life? Stay with me, because this story becomes even more emotionally powerful. Mystery alone fascinates, but mystery with meaning transforms. Because according to the spiritual tradition surrounding Saint Faustina, what mattered was not simply the experience, but the message: hope, mercy, compassion, the possibility that broken hearts are not forgotten. And this changes the emotional tone entirely. Because suddenly this is not just mystery, it becomes invitation. Invitation toward healing, toward trust, toward hope, toward spiritual renewal. And perhaps that is why millions continue to be moved by her story. Because beneath the mystery lies emotional relevance. Mercy matters, especially in a world filled with anxiety, pressure, regret, fear, brokenness. People long to know, can I still be loved? Can I still begin again? Can grace reach someone like me? Stories like this speak directly to that ache. Why does this story still matter? Because modern hearts are still searching. Technology changed, culture changed, life accelerated, but the human heart still longs, still fears, still searches, still hopes, still asks impossible questions late at night. Questions no algorithm can answer. Questions no productivity system can heal. Questions like, am I enough? Am I seen? Am I loved? Does my suffering matter? Will things ever change? And maybe that is why spiritual stories endure, because they speak where logic alone cannot satisfy. Not as proof for everyone, but as possibility, and possibility can be powerful, especially for tired hearts. Because maybe the deepest miracle is not simply hearing heaven, maybe it is discovering that mercy still reaches broken hearts. Let's make this personal. If heaven spoke to you, would you listen? If peace interrupted your fear, would you trust it? If grace reached your brokenness, would you believe you deserved it? These are not abstract questions. They are deeply human ones. Because often the greatest barrier is not mystery. It is our belief that we are too far gone, too broken, too flawed, too lost. But mercy says something different. And maybe that is why this story matters tonight. Because some hearts listening need hope. Real hope, gentle hope, healing hope, guided prayer. Lord, for every heart listening tonight, especially those searching for a sign, bring peace. For those feeling unseen, bring reassurance. For those carrying anxiety, bring calm. For those longing for direction, bring clarity. For those feeling spiritually tired, bring renewal. Lord, if there is someone listening tonight who feels forgotten, remind them they are seen. If someone feels broken, remind them mercy still reaches them. If someone feels ashamed, remind them grace is stronger than fear. If someone is quietly asking for hope, bring comfort, calm anxious thoughts, heal wounded hearts, bring light into emotional darkness, strengthen weak faith, restore discouraged spirits, and help every person listening remember they are never beyond mercy. Wrap this community in peace tonight, guide every searching heart, and bring gentle hope where it is needed most. Amen. If you stayed until the end, thank you, because Divine Stories exists for hearts exactly like yours. Searching hearts, hopeful hearts, tired hearts, faith-filled hearts, questioning hearts. If this story moved you, stay with us. Subscribe now to Divine Stories. Every week we share hidden saint stories, Christian mysteries, emotional inspiration, miracles, and powerful prayers for the heart. And tell me in the comments, have you ever asked God for a sign? I would truly love to read your thoughts, because no one should search alone.